Hello, hello, you guys. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm so excited to introduce our guest, Praise Santos McKenna. We just had a lovely chat on her podcast, which I highly recommend listening to. But welcome, Praise. I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah, it's so fun to make friends over the internet via podcast and just have truly like heart to heart, soul to soul conversations of, did I really just meet you? Oh, wait, I know so much about you now. We went deep. So I'm glad to be able to kind of share with you that here right now.
No, I'm so excited. I feel like it's like we're swapping therapy sessions a little bit, where like I did most of the talking for the last hour, and now you'll do most of the talking, and now I get to like learn about you in response.
Perfect. Let's do it.
I love it. Okay, so for those that don't know you yet, would you mind giving us a little intro on who you are, what you do, all of that good stuff?
Yeah. Hi, everyone in Eden's community. Like, how fun it is to be here today. My name is Praise Santos McKenna. I'm the founder of the branding studio ComePlum. We're in San Francisco, California. And through brand coaching and brand photography, we have a very clear mission and vision. We want to see 10,000 women feel resourced and inspired and confident to do the thing that they're called to do. Because the more and more I meet people, they have this tug, they have this pull, but a lot of times there's fear holding them back. There's a lack of know how holding them back. And oftentimes they just need a friend to come alongside them and say, hey, here's how you do it. Here's the mindset to do it. And I'm going to cheer you on along the way. So, everything we do, whether it's listening to the podcast, the Branding Your Business podcast, or if you all come to a workshop here in San Francisco, Eden, if you're ever this way, like, please come
Please.
out. We have a great time here. And we really want people, whether it's the 10,000 women who we want to see living into that calling or anyone who aligns with that, all allies are welcome. We want you to feel resourced and inspired and confident. And so that's a little bit about our studio and the work we do. I'm married to a great man. His name is Barry, and we have a cute dog who has an underbite. His name is Bubbles. And right now, we are on this kick of calling him Your Majesty because it cracks us up because he is truly like, he just like struts his little 17-pound body with a curly tail around like he owns the place. And we're like, oh, Your Majesty, like, what did you need today? And then I just didn't know we would become that couple, but I just laugh and enjoy. And those are my days that feel so content, just like a Sunday afternoon where we're joking around with our dog, like just having woken up from a nap. That to me is like the full life, the privileged life that I get to live.
Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. Also, Bubbles is the cutest name I've ever heard. I'm obsessed.
At Bubbles, but I go by Bubs if you want to, see that underbite on Instagram.
Stop. I'm obsessed. Okay, we will have to link that. That's amazing. Okay, so tell me about like how did you get started in this? Did you start with brand photography, brand consulting? Like, how did you get into this space and when did you?
Yeah, it's for me. I am a younger sister. I know you are an older sister. I am like youngest sibling vibes, and that my oldest sister, so artistic, so incredible. And she was really good at makeup. And she was so well rounded that she wanted to photograph her own portfolio. When she was like 17, 18, I was like 15, 16. She bought this kit camera. I don't know if it was from Costco, but she got a kit camera and she would do these amazing photo shoots. And when she wasn't using her camera, younger sister that I am, I was just like, hey, I promise like I'll charge it and I'll like clear the memory card, but can I just play around with it? Can I experiment with it? And thankfully, she didn't charge me because, by the way, when I asked her the same thing with her first Nokia cell phone, girl charged me $5 a month just to play Snake on her phone. I don't know if you were
Okay,
that
a
older sister,
businesswoman.
a business woman, but thankfully, she did not do that with her camera. As you can tell, I'm still a little salty because $5 is a lot when you're a kid. A month.
That's crazy when you're a kid. That's like $500 a month now. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm like, praise, there were better games out there. In retrospect, I should not have been paying that money for Snake. All that to say, so I borrowed my sister's camera and I was just like in my room, just figuring out because this is pre like YouTube where there's like tutorials online where you can just learn anything. And it was me more getting like kind of my hands dirty and figuring out, okay, if I want to make the background blurrier, oh, I do this thing that's called aperture or f-stop. Okay, if I want to get some movement, then I play with shutter speed. So it's a really like hands-on learning experience for me. And for some reason, like I had a youth leader who saw some pictures of like a snow globe I took in my room. I thought it was really cool. And she saw that and she's like, Praise, you're really artistic. Can you take my engagement photos? And her jump from seeing this photo that I was just like messing around, experimenting with to can you photograph this huge milestone in my life? I really am of the belief that she was, in a sense, like my first coach. She was, in a sense, someone who like saw my artistic abilities and what I could become and just gave me the encouragement and the opportunity to do it. And so I was like, okay, I'll like give this a try. And obviously, like I loved it because I got to spend time with people I really enjoyed. I saw that I was giving them a gift that would last a long time. And I was able to make something beautiful. And I was like, this is the coolest intersection. And they paid me like a couple $100. And I was like, well, this is like a fun win-win. So I kind of just stumbled into it and then had done that on the side. But I am a child of immigrants. And so my parents are like really hardworking people. And I just didn't have examples in front of me that being a full-time artist could be a full-time job. And so I went to school and I majored in like communications and I wanted to do community work. And so I focused in the nonprofit sector. And when I finished school, I moved out here to San Francisco and I worked in the nonprofit sector for a bit. But then I got really anxious and depressed and I wasn't sleeping well anymore. I wasn't eating well anymore. And so basic things like I just wasn't functioning well. And I was in my early 20s. And so I had to like pause and take a step back. I moved back home to Florida for a bit because I really just wanted to be near my mom so I could feel better again. But it gave me that space and kind of away from big city life and demands for me to ask myself, okay, what am I missing? I did like the right thing of getting my bachelor's degree, working, have a steady job. Like I can provide for myself, but something like my who I am as a person somehow is not clicking with this traditional like 9 to 5 job, even though I thought it was such a good job because I'm like, wait, I'm doing community work. Like the
Mhm.
city of San Francisco is going to be better because I work here, but why is this not fulfilling? And so I had to kind of brave this space of the unknown and just ask myself, okay, when was a time that I actually felt really vibrant, that I had energy? And it kind of went back to creativity and I wanted to have community impact. I wanted to work with people. But I think the role that I had at that time was as a director. I was like working with a lot with volunteers and just managing a lot of people. I wasn't creating anything. And so I wanted to combine both. And I just told myself, I don't know the answer, but Praise, you need to figure out how to love people well and make pretty things. And that should be how you spend your time. And so I felt like the nudge to be like, hey, you did photography, you've been doing it on the side. Why don't you actually try to go for it? And so it was really risky just because the cost of living in San Francisco and what I was charging at the time just didn't make sense. But I gave myself 3 months to just give it a try. But in those 3 months, I honestly was working like three other jobs. I was doing graphic design, acting and modeling, brand ambassadoring, all the things. And then I just let myself discover and have a discovery process of what it would look like. After a while, photography, like word of mouth started to spread. I could raise my prices a little bit. And within a year, I could just do photography. And then I've now been doing that in the last 10 years. I started that in 2014, which was so wild. And it's continued to be those same questions of what is draining my energy and what is giving me energy right now. And that has how my business has pivoted a lot. And that's how I niched down into brand photography because I loved working with entrepreneurs. I loved working with small businesses because I would leave those photo shoots with new friends because we would have these conversations that felt so heart to heart. And I also got to deliver them something they needed for their website too. And so I thought it was a great use of my gifts. And I got into coaching because I saw this gap of these people who I really wanted to see thrive. They hired me for photos, but once I delivered it to them, some of them didn't know what to do with them. They didn't have a strategy or a deep why behind it. And so I got into coaching just because I still wanted to see these people be a success. And so nowadays, I actually try to steer people away like, yes, you can still hire me and my team for photography, but tell me a little bit how the world is going to be different because your business exists. Tell me a little
Mm.
bit how you're going to get into the audience that you really love to serve. How are you going to show up and tell them that you can help them solve their problem? And so I love doing like brand foundation, brand strategy before we jump into helping them with a website or helping them with photos, just because I feel like once those are settled, the expression and fun part can come later. But I feel like I'm honestly loving people really well by setting them up with this kind of more beginning aspect of the work I get to do primarily.
I love that. How have you 2 questions. 1, how did you identify and kind of come up with the process and or questions or conversations that you wanted to have with your clients in order to get to know them better? Because I think that's something people really struggle with is like, where do I even start with this? Like, yes, I want to get more personal. I want to build relationships with my clients. Like, where do I start? And then just so that I do not forget the second question, I would love to know how this has affected you personally, like how your job has changed who you are as a person by getting to know other people better and like having these intentional processes. But let's start with number 1 of like, yeah, how did you decide on what that process was going to look like and how to talk to these clients and like how to logistically almost navigate this new aspect to your business and process?
Yeah, I would encourage others if they're trying to take this as prescription. And first, I don't want you to take it as prescription. I want you to take it as like more narrative of I'm going to share a little bit of my story, but I would advise folks again to see where the energy is. There's going to be some people you just click with a little better that you leave more energized having spent time with them than you did before you spent time with them too. And these are just how you're not that you don't like the other people, but there's just something about your energies, your life experience that just clicks, that you just have a honestly a natural love for them, that you want to see them do well. Because when there's that natural affinity and natural chemistry, this stuff just flows. And that's also something interesting that I've been coaching people with too, that they think they have an audience that looks like this, but when you actually get deeper, I'm like, maybe you could explore experimenting with other people who might identify with this instead. So there's that kind of one immediate like chemistry match.
Mm.
Because I actually know I attract the people who work well with me. And thankfully, I also repel people too, because I'm really clear with who I love to work with, how I can help people. And I'm okay with that. And I really hope they find the people that they're going to click with instead. And so that's kind of a base thing. I just like found the people who I loved to work with. Whereas developing a system to get to know them better, I feel as if asking open ended questions is such an form, and asking questions that help them jump to their own conclusions is
Mm.
actually a better way to coach than just asking them a question that's going to lead to like a yes or no answer. Because I have the belief, and we chatted about this earlier too, that people are so smart. They are so smart. And actually, a lot of people know what they need to do. And oftentimes it's a gift to have people who are outside of your life and outside of the way you think to just ask you that tough question of, okay, so you're asking me, Praise, how do I post on social media to grow my business? And what I'm really about is how do you feel about showing up authentically?
Mm.
What's stopping you? And so it's helping people get behind the real question behind the question. And that has been developed over time, thankfully, because a lot of people in my life asked me tough questions too. And over a while, you start to see patterns. But I think that's one of the main things, even when we host group programs and we do kind of like a mastermind table, instead of us jumping immediately to advice, we encourage people. We even set a timer. Hey, before we say anything, we're going to just set a time for questions. So we're asking people open ended questions so they can get to their own conclusions because we believe they got this in them. And we're going to approach it with that aspect. So that's kind of how we systemize it. And again, great people have taught me that. And on to your second question, which, by the way, great at open ended questions, Eden. Like, you
Thank
model
you.
this so well. Um, your question was, how have I changed as a person as I've kind of pivoted with this business and pivoted in more of this like very people focused aspect? It's been really interesting because you know, when you meet someone at a new party, I hate it when the first question is like, so what do you do? Like
Mhm.
to me, I'm just like, I am even someone who's built a business about something I really love and am passionate about and want to see in the world. But I also don't want to be seen as one dimensional or in our Western culture. I get it. It's so pervasive in our society to be what we accomplish or be the impact that we make. But I am so much more than that. And so, a framework that's been really helpful for me and kind of how I want to see people, whether it is in more of a professional aspect because they hire our studio or in just someone I meet like at the bus stop, is seeing them in this framework, what we call sweat, work, love, and play, where I want people to ask me when they're catching up with me, like, hey, how is your health? But like, sweat is
Mm.
not just like, it is one of the hottest days in San Francisco. So I am a little sweaty, but more just like, okay, yeah, are there new workouts you're trying out? Or how has your time with your therapist have been? How
Mm.
is your spiritual health? How are you emotionally? So health in like a broad term. And then work, there's some people who might not have a traditional job right now. What are they doing full time? I have a lot of people in these days in my life who are also just caregivers. Are they taking care of their parents, their own children? That is still like productive time. And so even broadening it out as work being that way. I also I remember when I was single or I was just dating, it would always be some people are like they want that juicy, like, who are you dating right now? What is it like? And I think that relationship, a significant other is important, but there are so many other relationships too. Like, what is your relationship to yourself? What does community mean like for you right now? Like, how is your family or how is your chosen family, the people you called family? And then the last
Mm.
word is play. So sweat, work, love, and play. Also, I want people to ask me, like, what are you also just doing for fun right now? Like, what is something so outside of your work life? So outside of like branding and business or something like you've never done before, but that is just fun for you. And so that has is how this work has kind of changed me because I start to see things in different frameworks or I start to experience of like, oh, I realize my clients want to be seen as more than just like this one dimensional aspect of work takes up a majority of their life. And also, I want to be seen as a multidimensional person where that I want people to ask me about a lot of things in my life and not just this one aspect. And so it's about, I'm starting to see people as whole people and really like colorful icebergs where there's just so much more depth to them. And I'm learning that about myself too.
I love those questions. I'm like, I'm gonna need the transcript to this podcast episode so that I can just like start having them on little like pieces of paper at my parties for people that like can't think of questions to ask other than what do you do for work? And like, I also think, yeah, I love hearing from fellow entrepreneurs that love their business that they also don't like getting asked what they do for work. I think it's it's one of my least favorite questions in the world. And yeah, like you, I'm so fortunate. I've been self-employed since I was like 19, 20 years old. Like I've basically never worked for someone else. Like, and I still am like, is that really all you can ask me? Like, I remember when I moved to New York, I didn't even have a LinkedIn. And I remember like the first 10 people I met, like that's how they wanted to connect, is they like would ask what I did for work and they'd be like, let me grab your LinkedIn. And I was like, I don't even have one. Like, what are you talking? Like, what are we talking about? Like, this has got to be the least interesting thing about both of us. Like, it's our job. So I love these open-ended questions that you can really like, do you ask your clients these questions as well? Because I love these questions. I feel like they're so representative of the things that are important to us. Like they are so open-ended that like someone is going to, in the best way possible, expose themselves in a way of like, this is what's important to me right now. This is what I'm pursuing. This is where I'm investing my time. Like, do you ask your clients similar questions?
Yes. And we have a mastermind program where we every few weeks we get to go around and one person gets to share a challenge where I was explaining like, okay, someone shares a challenge and then we're going to spend the first few minutes just asking questions and then giving advice after that. But I encourage folks that when they come with a challenge, of course, we're here to work on your business and your brand. This is like why you paid me to be part of this program. But I care about the whole you. So if there is something personal that's coming up in your life that's a challenge, please share it with the group because it's going to affect how you also lead your business. So I know it's going to actually be the thing that you sought out to do. But I want you to feel safe enough to share it because I was in a program where I was like trained in this coaching method. And I used that group, which was a professional group, to talk about when I first started dating my husband. I was like, okay, y'all, I know you already know a lot about my business, but I just met this guy. Can you tell whether or not I like him? And I would just list off some
I
of these things
love.
because it was also just like top of mind for me and what really was going on in my life. And we have to people's BS meter is so good right now. And we know that there are some work environments, bless you if this is your work environment, that you really have to put on a face when you clock in and like take off your face and come home and you feel like your real self. If you're listening, I want so much more for you than that work environment. But I get it. Sometimes there's a benefit to that where you can truly like clock in and clock out. And yet, there's also why, even in a corporate environment, you have like personal time off just because our personal life bleeds so much into our work life and our productive life too. And so when I am working with clients, I want to acknowledge that, hey, I know you came to me because you're building out your own online course or your own coaching program or you're working on your branding. I want to talk about that, but also like what's bringing you a lot of joy these days or what broke your heart over the weekend. I also want you to know that I care for you as a whole person. We don't have to spend our whole time thinking of that because I am not a therapist. I can tell
Mhm.
people I'm not trained in that, can refer you to great therapists. And I'm also just a human doing life with you. And I want people to feel that safe with me too. So, yes, I do ask my clients those questions. And sometimes it's also intuition. Sometimes you know to ask, and sometimes you're like, actually, we're just going to talk about work. And that's okay
Mhm.
too.
I love that. How do you I love the line like I'm a human doing life with you as well. Like I think that's so important to remind ourselves in our businesses too because sometimes we can get so hung up in the like client dynamic of like there needs to be and like there does need to be boundaries. Like that's a different conversation for another day. Like we've all had a client that went a little too personal and it's like okay, I can't be your therapist as you said. But where you do run a more personal, people led, community led business, how have you prioritized the line between personal life and work? Like, obviously, it's something that does overlap a little, but we never want it to completely overlap. And I know that's something I've really like worked on over the last couple of years of like how can I love my business but like still have a personal life where I don't think about work and like I check out from work and I'm not thinking about it. Like how have you kind of prioritized that boundary? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I love that. Again, you're doing this life with me too, Eden. We're both kind of figuring it out
Mm-hmm.
as our businesses have grown, as we're having different clients, because every client is so different. And then it also, I think it depends on some of my clients' learning styles too. That there's some folks who need to almost have like a personal connection to be able to trust you to really tell them what's really going on with their business. So it's almost like essential to the work. And there's some clients who are so clear of like, praise, you took this product X and you took it from point A to point B. Can you really just share with me the strategy for that too? I'm like, yeah, okay, I got some giant post-its and like a lot of mini post-its and let's do it. And it's also being able to read the room and see what people need in that moment as well. And it's being really good at now reading myself too of when I'm giving too much or when I'm doing too much too, because I have had clients who hire me again and again over the years, so much so that I want to invite them into personal thing. Like, hey, I'm just having a birthday party. Like, I'd like spending time with you. You should come with me. And then there are other clients who I remember I had this one client or almost client who, we like set up our first call. She's like, okay, I want to hire you. And so we're talking about like we sent her a contract. In the meantime, we're just chatting. And I realized like she's working through a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. And so I'm just kind of giving a lot of space, asking open ended questions, like giving her the space to talk back. And I realized we had 3 calls like that, 3 1-hour calls like that. And she hadn't paid her deposit. And I just was like, I think this woman is taking advantage of me now. Cause now I also don't, I knew what it was like to end that phone call. And I'm like, that feeling where you're like, okay, I want her to be well. I'm not the answer. And now I feel a little bit used. And
Mm-hmm.
so thankfully that's not common in my business, but was a good way for me to remind myself to trust myself of like, if this doesn't feel good, we need to like have a direct conversation with her and also set her free to find the people who can really help her. So it's been a bit nuanced of seeing what kind of learning style my client needs and also seeing myself like, oh, I actually just want to be friends with this person. And also learning about myself like, oh, wait, there was a boundary crossed where this just doesn't feel good anymore. And where I feel like I'm being more like my grace and my kindness is being spent and abused
Mm.
versus being really cherished and helping that person. So it's been kind of hard learnings more from experience than I don't think I can make an SOP for it, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
mhm. No, that totally makes sense. And I love the distinction of like my time being, I think you said cherished and appreciated. Like that's such a distinct difference in client relationships. And like the more experience you get in your business, the more you'll be able to tell the two apart and like even start to learn what that looks like on consultation calls. But I think it's so beautiful to connect with people that again are like, I'm a human, you're a human. Like, I think we have a lot to benefit from each other. Like, I want to cherish and appreciate your time and your services while you cherish and appreciate my business and like the process that is to improve it. So I love all of that. I think that's also like so important to know as you did that like every person's different and like everyone's capacity is different and like that's one of the things I always try to stress to people is I'm like I have had phases in my life where my capacity was so different than it is now and that will change again and that will change if I live with a partner, that will change if I have children, that will change if I open more businesses, that will change if I have more employees. Like there's so many aspects. There's no right or wrong answer. It's such a personal thing to find that distinction in that line. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's all amazing. As we wrap up, I would love to hear like what are you excited about right now? Like what's upcoming for you down the pipeline if there is anything or just like what's lighting you up as of late?
Yeah, this is a good question just because these are questions I'm asking myself to because of realizing that life changes and our
Mhm.
circumstances change and the market changes and what used to give me energy doesn't give me energy. I remember I have been leading a group program that I love like for the last couple of years and we would launch it every spring and fall and we're probably going to be doing it again, but there's certain life circumstances that are happening in my life where I was just doing so many heart to heart conversations during the week, which I love, but I realized I had a limit and I was really spent after the last season. And so I was asking myself, how do we keep that magic and intentionality of that? How do I train one other coaches to have that same approach so people get the same experience under me? Two, how do I systemize a lot of it? Because Praise, like, I know you didn't want to launch a course before, but a lot of this stuff can be pre recorded, and some people learn really well by playing a video too. And so I feel like I'm not doing the traditional path in that I've done like one on one coaching, I've had group programs, and a lot of people scale to that from having done like pre recorded courses before. So I kind of feel like I'm
Mm,
going backwards. And yet at the same time, I feel like I'm going backwards in a really cool way because we are building something so that we can serve an audience that can't afford like a high touch price point. We are serving an audience that needs to be listening to this like on the go, who actually don't have the capacity for all the high touch that I want to do. And yet I believe that the technology, and if I train the right people, it exists so that even when it's more malleable to their time schedule, I still want this aspect of like support and that they leave feeling seen as a whole person
mm,
anyways. And so my brain gets so excited trying to solve this problem like Praise. So you're asking yourself to scale and yet keep a personal touch. Okay, like challenge accepted. Let me figure out how we're going to implement like our values into this thing so that because we're teaching others how to run like value driven businesses and businesses that feel so aligned, I feel like if I can model this, then I can also help mentor and inform other businesses so that they can also create businesses that have this same viewpoint and alignment. Like, wait, that domino effect will be so cool in cities and towns as they inspire more people to interact and provide customer service, and that people are just people, they're just humans doing life with us too. If different industries could have that impact, like I get goosebumps talking about it right now. And so it's one of those things like I'm both excited about it, don't have all the answers. I'm going to figure it out, but I'm still closer than I was before. So excited, but what a mystery it'll be, Eden. What a mystery as it's coming about.
No, literally, we both got things to figure out, but I'm so excited for you. That sounds amazing. I can't wait to see how that manifests.
Same.
Can't wait to see. It'll be a surprise for all of us, and I love that. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Praise. It's been so lovely to meet you. Please let me know if you're ever in Chicago. I'm like, would love to meet you in person. And we will obviously link everything in the show notes for people to find you online. But do you mind telling us really quick where they can find you in their online spaces?
Yes, I'm already inviting myself over to your house to try
Please.
on that holographic hat and take a picture and like put it up on the
Please.
bulletin wall. So I'm there. Don't know when yet, but I'm there.
Perfect.
And but in the meantime, on the online internet space, so you can find us. Our website is come like you're going somewhere and plum like the fruit. So ComePlum.com. Our podcast is called the Branding Your Business Podcast. We're on Apple and Spotify. On Instagram, you can find us at ComePlum or at Branding Your Business Podcast. But most importantly, Bubbles is at Bubbles, but I go by Bubs. And then you'll see like my personal Instagrams linked to all of those too. But that's where you
Cute.
can find me. Like, just I love saying hi in the DMs. Like, send me a voice memo, say hi. Like, I love to connect with people.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I feel like we could have talked for ages. It's so lovely to connect with you. So thank you for coming on.
Eden, you're the best. Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.